possible that panentheism is a lost understanding of God's nature? Well, in order to understand this question, we have to understand the different views about the nature of God. So the first view is theism. Okay? Theism is the idea that God created all things. And on this view, God created the universe ex nihilo, out of nothing. And God and the universe are separate and distinct. God transcends the universe. All right? God is a personal being who is immaterial, necessary, eternal, absolute. The universe, however, is a contingent created physical reality that is not eternal, absolute, and has all the characteristics that God has. So they are distinct beings. Theism is the view that is accepted by Christians, Jews, and Muslims. Okay? Now, there's also another view of God's nature, and that's called pantheism. And pantheism is the idea that God is all things. Now, in this view, God and the universe are one and the same. There's no distinction between God and the universe. God is the universe, and the universe is God. So we might say God minus the universe equals 0. And on this view, God is not a personal being. In fact, everything is God. In fact, it reminds me of that old movie. Shirley MacLaine used to be, or is, an advocate of this view. And there was a movie back in the 80s that she was in, and she stands on the beach, she outstretches her arms, and she shouts, "I am God!" And of course, if pantheism is true, well, then she's right. She is God. But surely pantheism is not true. So anyways, that's the second view of God, pantheism. A third view of God, or the nature of God, is panentheism. Okay? Not to be confused with pantheism, which says God is all things. Panentheism says God is in all things. Okay? Now, in this view of God, God is sort of like the soul that inhabits the universe, and the universe is God's body. And in fact, some people describe this view of God as bipolar theism. And the reason is because in this view, there are two different poles of God. The one pole of God is being mind. And God's mind is immutable, it's eternal and absolute, it's unchanging. But then God has another pole, and that is the universe, the created world that is contingent, that is in process, that is changing. Okay? And on panentheism's view, God did not create the world ex nihilo. Rather, God and man are somehow co-creators of the world. And so when you understand these different views of God and you understand panentheism, you can see why this is not really a lost understanding of God's nature, because it flatly contradicts the biblical model. Right? The biblical model of God says that God created the universe, and the universe is separate and distinct from God. And of course, panentheism rejects that. Panentheism says that God is in process, God is changing, God is contingent, or at least parts of him, this other pole, this created reality. And of course, these all flatly contradict God's nature. And so the answer to this question is no, panentheism is not a lost understanding of God's nature. Rather, panentheism is just simply a mistaken understanding of God's nature.